My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. Okay, we're looking at Romans chapter 8 and Paul's discussion of the resurrection. And he said that the creation was eagerly awaiting, expectantly looking for the manifestation of the sons of God. He uses the word ktisis, the word that is translated as creation. The word ktisis is used some 20 times, if my count is correct, taken from the Englishman's Greek Concordance. Some 20 times in the New Testament. Now look, there's no question whatsoever that there are references, there are passages that refer to the physical creation. In Mark, for instance, we have two occasions that refer to God and the original creation of man and woman. And so there's no question. It seems to me like the word ktisis, I won't say it's evenly divided between references to the physical creation and the non-physical creation. But there's absolutely no question, first of all, that it does refer to the physical creation, but it's also used in metaphoric applications, or it is used in applications simply to speak of mankind, sentient creation. You know, when Paul referred in Romans chapter 1 to the sin of the Gentiles, he said they worship and serve the creation or the creature more than the Creator. Well, that's probably a good reference there to the fact that they were worshiping animals. They were worshiping rocks and trees and what have you. I don't have a problem with that. That's honoring the context. That's honoring the historical situation. However, Jesus said also in Mark chapter 16, "Go you therefore and preach the gospel to every creature." Okay, now, are we going to say that preachers, evangelists, or anyone wishing to share the gospel has to go out and talk to the trees, talk to the rocks, talks to the bugs and the slugs and the mosquitoes? No. And thus, when Paul wrote in Colossians chapter 1 and verse 23, he said the gospel had been preached, past tense, to every creature, ktisis, under heaven. You know what? We don't have a single record of Paul going out and talking to the fish, talking to the birds, talking to the bugs, slugs, and mosquitoes. No, pretty obviously, when Jesus said, "Go preach the gospel to every creature," and Paul said the gospel had been preached to every creature, that the references there are not to physical creation. Furthermore, we would take note of this. In Hebrews chapter 9, 12 and 13, Paul says, I believe Paul wrote the book of Hebrews, Paul says that Christ had offered himself as a perfect sacrifice, without spot and without blemish. And his sacrifice purges the conscience from dead works to serve the living God. And he contrasts Christ's sacrifice with the sacrifices of what? The present building is the way the King James, New King James translates it. Now, the contrast there is between the Old Covenant sacrificial temple and the new spiritual temple of Christ. But he refers to the Old Covenant temple as the present temple, the present creation. Furthermore, we need to be aware of the fact that Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 17, if any man is in Christ, he is a new creature, or literally, he is new creation. Behold, all things are passed away. Behold, all things have become new. He would write also in Galatians chapter 6, 15. For in Christ neither circumcision avails anything, nor uncircumcision, but the new creation. Now, question. Is Paul in Romans 8 not anticipating, is he not discussing the new creation? Well, I don't know anyone that denies that. Well, guess what? That means that since Paul said if any man is in Christ, those are all, present tense concepts. If he's in Christ, he is a new creation. The new creation had broken in. By the way, virtually all scholars agree that the new world, the new creation, had already broken into the old. So there's no question whatsoever that this is the motif that Paul has in mind. In Romans 8, he's not talking about something totally futuristic. They're looking for the adoption, but they've already received the spirit of adoption. So, the new creation had already broken in, and that means that the restoration of all things had already begun. But isn't it very obvious that when Paul said that the adoption had already begun, that the new creation had already begun, that he wasn't talking about physical creation having already begun to be restored? He wasn't talking about the fact that we have mosquitoes that don't bite anymore. He wasn't saying that we don't have roaches that are nasty anymore. No, he's not talking about bugs, slugs, and mosquitoes being the creation. We'll have more on this, but this is so critical to understand. And look, let me tell you something. If Paul was not talking about physical creation being physically restored to Edenic pre-sin state, then a great part of the futurist eschatology that is being taught is simply false. So yes, we've got more on the creation. We will see you on the flip side.